yeah, I know a lot about investment. I have investment and money in investments that I
Alright.
have as well.
So we're live. How's everyone doing? We'll start with you, Andrew.
Yeah, good. This week's been pretty boring. I've been in lockdown, so I've been in isolation for like 3 days now. I think today is day 3. We're
Hey.
still waiting on results. So
Okay, so waiting for test results to come back.
yeah, we went and got tested at the drive-through clinic, and we got there at about I think 6 a.m. or something, and we got out at about 10.
Fucking hell.
We didn't get turned around though. We got the test, so that's good news. A 4-hour wait sucks, but it's better than getting to the front of the line and getting told they're closed or out of test, which a lot of people got. So, I can't complain, and we're still waiting for the results. But it just kind of sucks because my brother has tested positive, and he got his results in like 14 hours or something like
Is
that.
that
But
Luke?
no, he's from Sydney, my
Yeah.
younger brother. But yeah, other than that, nothing of note really. I've just been at home. Emma and I are both at home, which sucks for her because she's still working. She's got to work from home, but my job I can't really do from home. So, you know,
Can't you just take your clients home with you? Like play some Risk of Rain or something?
yeah, I just FaceTime them and tell them what to do.
Yeah. Alright, Aaron. Where are you at this week?
This week I've had probably 2 crises a day, every day, and they're literally not even registering anymore. Like things that used to be like a high level thing, now I'm just steamrolling through, and we'll see the results of it all. But I think I've reached a point where what would have been very damaging events a couple years ago now don't even really matter. It's just how I choose to deal with them.
And if you're not uncomfortable, could you give us an example?
God, there's been like 20 things at work. There's been everyone's getting sick. There's just been heaps of shit, man. I can't be bothered anyway going into it right now. Like,
oh, good, no problems.
I want to talk about investing.
All right.
Oh, actually, wait, no. Before we go to continue, I finished off the website for Recreate Meaning. So if you download the Unify app, you can get access to the website. On the website, there's articles, and in the articles, some of which are published on the new website now, but I published on the old website last year. A lot of what I wrote came true.
That's
like
that economic, economic intuition.
Well, there's one where I wrote about how pouring out all the fresh milk instead of having it delivered to where it's got to go is going to result in a dairy shortage. And now there's no cheese and stuff on the shelf. Cheese takes a little while to obviously process compared to regular fresh milk. So we're seeing the shortage. From the events that happened last year, we're seeing the shortage now. And I wrote about a bunch of stuff like that, and a lot of it seems to be coming true. So I don't know, check them out.
Yeah, and I'll link the website in the description of the video as well for people.
Awesome. I'll have an article to go with this episode as well, because there's quite a lot I want to cover, but I'll recap the previous episode pretty quickly.
Also, just quickly, the link to the YouTube channel in the app doesn't actually work, which was
I know, I spotted that. I'm gonna see if I can find a way around that, because I think I can. It doesn't.
There is a link
it doesn't.
that you can click.
Yeah, no, it doesn't like it if I embed a YouTube video in the app. That's the app level that's stopping that.
Are you embedding an individual video? I thought it was just the channel.
No, I embedded I had a link to the channel, but it won't let that link be clicked. But I'm hoping I can have a web page, put the web page into the app, and on that web page embed a video, and I'm hoping it will be missed, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. All these little things. That got to build my own version of YouTube because some fucking reason, like they just don't let you do it the easy way. That's the whole app development cycle.
Yeah, you're on the forefront of technology at the moment.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. All app development would be very, very easy, except people have figured out ways to exploit the easy mechanisms. So then you can't do anything the easy way. You've got to do it like these ways that have like 10 workarounds just to do something that would be like, a regular feature that you would expect would be easy. But is what it
Hilarious.
is.
All right, shoot this recap, Aaron.
All right. So last week, whenever it was, we spoke about being able to identify inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and risk at the local level as the foundation of investing. So the main point that we spoke about was, if you're in a life that's a mess and you've got $5,000, putting that $5,000 into the stock market, even if you pick a winning company, it's still likely the case that your own life is going to be the reason why you have to sell those shares. So your life's a mess, you split up with your partner, you've got to move, you need a new security deposit, you've then got to sell some shares. Whether or not the company was doing well or poorly, your investment, the source of risk on your investment was always your own personal life. So today we're going to really bust that open and figure out how to minimize all the personal risks so that you can invest. And we concluded the last video by talking about the term bottlenecks. And bottlenecks just prevent you advancing beyond a certain limit. And I think following what I say in today's video will help you identify the bottlenecks that are specifically relevant to you, as well as give you the tools to be able to resolve those bottlenecks for yourself.
Yeah. I'm feeling bottleneck on hours at the moment, and it's really painful.
Well, that leads into step 1 here. Get organized on the local level, starting with time.
There you go.
Okay. So I feel like this is the first step to organizing your life. All you got to do is record and estimate how you spend your time each week. And for this to be effective, you've got to be honest about it. Like, there's a lot of people who are watching 40 hours of Netflix a week and pretending they don't. Like, just don't do that. Like, be honest. I'll link to... Yeah.
I was just going to say, sometimes it can be very upsetting watching how much time you spend on YouTube. I think one week I clocked up like 15 hours, and I was like, holy shit, that's still a lot.
Yeah, it is very common. So I'll link to a Excel template that I've got to go along with this podcast. But for this bit, just imagine I'm talking about a table. It's got Monday to Sunday across the columns and midnight to midnight running down the page. And what you do is you fill in the hours with their associated tasks. So you just record sleep, work, study, meals, video games, cleaning, gym, when you're resting, different to sleep, like actually taking a break. Netflix, social media, YouTube, your intoxication and hangover time. You just put it all there on that grid that is the week, and you just have a look how you're doing. And you don't be super judgmental on yourself or whatever, because it's just going to ruin the whole process. So you've just got to do this honestly. Pretend you're a scientist. Don't look at it and be like, oh, I'm a failure, or put a bunch of lies into it so you feel better, and then be like, oh, well, look, I'm doing awesome. Someone else's fault that things aren't going well. Like, just be honest about it.
Yeah, and have some humility as well, because it can be quite confronting seeing your life go, once you become consciously aware of your life just disappearing in front of you, it can be quite fucking violent.
Especially when you're really sad and you woke up, had a nap, it was then 3 p.m, you chilled for a couple hours and then went to bed early. Those days aren't going to look good on the paper. That's the first step. The second step there is to list every possible recurring task. You just do this in a list next to the column. So every recurring task in your life that will have a negative impact on your future if you forget it. So that would be stuff like feeding the cat, taking medication, paying rent, all of these sorts of things that you have to do. And if you don't do them, things will get very bad very quickly. You put those down. And take a special care to make sure that you write all the weekly tasks that you've ever forgotten. So something as simple as putting out the bin. It's is maybe not even worth mentioning on the list, except for the fact that if you forget it, it causes a problem. So then you put it on the list, especially if you're prone to forgetting that sort of thing. How are we doing, Andrew? Am I making sense?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the only part that didn't make sense, and I kind of understand why, but there'd be no reason to lie given that you're the only one seeing it, but I can understand why people would lie to themselves to make it seem like they're achieving more than they are, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
I
just,
mean,
you know,
using psychological terms, I'd say
yeah.
like it's a place where the superego is going to step in and refuse to let you think through what's happening. And
It's just weird because it's like, you know, you know
Yeah,
you're
I know.
lying, you know that you didn't do it, so
It does
it
like
doesn't make sense. But again, it's a bit more complicated than that.
it takes
Yeah,
like
see,
personal deception, and there's a lot of reasons to not be upset about wasting all your time, and the deception part of your mind can really overestimate a lot of shit and
Yeah.
make you feel better about yourself.
yeah, that's the problem, because there's like in this whole sort of like self-help management, get organized, whatever field, all of it is pretty much like, here's a basic system that if you run, things will get better. But the majority of them don't work if you're engaging in self-deception. And if you're, and it's not just that, some simple system won't work if you're engaged in self-deception. Some pretty major things in life don't work if you're engaged in self-deception. So I stress the point because I think that it's so important. Like to be tethered to the truth is like literally the first part of this. So once your standard week has been recorded, what you do is you highlight the unproductive tasks using a red color. And then the unproductive tasks are non-essential tasks that do not have a positive effect on your future, especially things that potentially have a negative effect, like Netflix for a few hours a day, every day, could stop you from becoming a really awesome person in the future. So that's the kind of stuff you'd want to identify as negative. And then you color the productive tasks using a blue color. Just remember, I'll give a template for this, so it'll be nice and easy to do. And like all the productive tasks, we'll call something productive if it has a positive effect on your future. And it's up to you to decide that. Like, you can use other people's definitions if you want, but if you allow yourself to be guided by your own individual desires, you'll be able to more effectively develop motivation for what it is you want to do in life, as well as increase the chances of success so that you can actually do it someday.
Yeah, and then you won't be tyrannizing over yourself all the time to do the things that you should be doing versus things that you actually should be doing and want to do.
Well, I've actually got a question on that, Aaron. What do you think the ratio should be percentage-wise of long-term, activities you're doing long-term to achieve goals and activities that you're doing that are short-term dopamine hits, Because you can't constantly do things that are only long-term and you're constantly doing those activities that are just focusing on these goals and obviously some people do it, but you also can't be just constantly having these dopamine hits and never achieving anything. So the ratio would, I assume, be a pretty small amount of short-term hits and then a lot of long-term work. But
Well,
do you have
there's
an amount?
there's no perfect formula, but I can give you something that's quite interesting here. If you're set up right, you can combine the two. And there's two ways to combine the two. One is you develop a sudden and strong urge to understand agriculture, and you begin to organize your life around the acquisition of a farm, perhaps in some sort of crisis.
This is a hypothetical, hey.
Hypothetical.
Yeah.
Now, if you're guided by your interest, and it's an interest that you can't control, it's just come out of nowhere and the thing's just dragging you along with it, you'll get your short-term dopamine hit. in researching and taking steps towards your long-term goal. And if you're really lucky, you'll be working for leisure. And you'll consider it leisure while others will look on and consider it work.
Mm.
Now, there's always going to be, like there's stuff like Twitter for me is the big one. Talking about me now, Twitter is something that I'm just so addicted to. It's like it's a legitimate problem. Like I check Twitter constantly, and it doesn't advance me in any goal except for perhaps helping inform me in what's going on. But it's also giving me a lot of misinformation as well. So it's definitely a double-edged sword there. But there are times when I replace that Twitter wasted time with watching YouTube videos about, random things relevant to getting a farm. I was the guy from the example.
What?
That was you.
And
This whole time.
and having these things, like, it's still YouTube. It's still technically not like, it's not high value work, but it's definitely not irrelevant. And watching all these videos have really helped me with a lot of things. So yeah, it's hard to get the ratio of long term to short term right, perhaps because the ratio, it doesn't actually exist. Maybe I don't know.
I think it's dependent on literally your goal and what you're willing to sacrifice for. Because like a work-life balance is something that I've been trying to get under my belt for ages, and the thing that seems to work for me is that as long as my focused work goes into something that I care about, then I get enough dopamine to keep going.
I'll offer another thing as well, because there's two ways to do this ratio. One, there's try to identify something that will give you a dopamine hit despite being work. But two, there's combination things. So you look at the reds and the blues on the table that we set up, and there's things like video games would probably be a red, but you could actually, let's leave the video games now. Let's go Netflix. You could chuck something on Netflix, and then you could fold your washing while it's on. And now you've kind of turned that red into there's like a little bit of blue there as well now. Now that time isn't completely wasted or anything. And one thing that I'd really recommend, this has been revolutionary for me this year, and last year. There's a Twitter account, Alex Bernier. He's at My Thought Food, and he offers many exercises related to pain from excess sitting and standing. And a lot of them can be done while watching Netflix. And the really good thing about this guy is if you go to his Twitter account, you just scroll down, he might have something like, do you have this specific type of back pain? And you'll be like, yes. And you click it, and then he's responded to himself with exercises. Then if you click those exercises, he's got more information, and you can kind of follow all his tweets. They're all connected, and you can find out the cause of your pain, what to do about it, and it's like a really good Twitter account to look at. And then you can do these exercises while you're watching Netflix. And like one of the things that it's done for me is it's made me more resilient to standing up all day, which is something that I do at my job, which has helped my energy levels massively. But another combination of reds and blues that has also been revolutionary for me is listening to audiobooks while playing video games. And when I was in uni, I used to listen to lectures while playing video games as well. And that helped me get through uni without having to sacrifice too much of video games. But if you can listen to an audiobook while playing video games, even if your focus isn't perfect, there's a lot of games out there that don't take all your focus, and there's a lot of books that don't need all your focus, and you can turn that that dead time of video games where you're getting those dopamine hits and you're having the fun in advancing the story, but ultimately it's not advancing you on another level, which is the level of kind of more like real life and perhaps intellectual development. you can transform that into an activity that's actually pushing you forward. And if you can find high enough quality books, you can become like very educated very quickly. So I thought I'd just lay out some books in an order that would take you from, I would say you could go from being uneducated to university level educated just by reading the following. I know what I've got, like 12 books here, especially in the following order. So I'll just lay that out really quickly, unless anybody has anything to say before I begin.
Oh,
Go
all
for
good.
it.
All right. So a short course in reality that can be taken while playing video games. First book is Fooled by Randomness, Nassim Taleb. He's a philosopher of probability. He used to be a trader. Very, very smart guy. In this book, he talks about our tendency to underestimate the impact of randomness in the events in our lives. And he does a big discussion on the topic. It's sort of impossible to summarize, and I don't want to try. But
It's a very good book, by the way.
yeah. One thing that you may be lacking if you're undereducated is sort of a theory of randomness. And randomness really, really matters because you can't control everything that happens to you. Like, there's always going to be randomness interfering with what you're doing, as well as dictating what you're doing and how things are unfolding for you. So to start here, you gain a understanding of things that will just immediately push you out in front.
Plus, it'll give you an ability to be be more humble with yourself, because a lot of the time, if you try and control outside factors, then you're not going to be able to control everything, and you'll be putting a lot of emotional energy into trying to control things you actually can't, and that's not that's not ideal.
Yeah. I'll lay out the rest of the books pretty quickly, but the order in which I'm saying these matters. I've put them in an order. This isn't the order I read them in, but it's the order I wish I read them in. So Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. Then we've got Basic Economics, the 5th edition by Thomas Sowell. All of these are on Audible, by the way. The next book is The Investors Podcast, the very first episode, Warren Buffett Investing Basics. The next book we have is The Black Swan, once again by Taleb. And then we get to another book, Restoration Agriculture by Mark Shepard. And what you'll see if you do it in this order, you'll see that the Warren Buffett Investing Basics is a theory of investing which is good, it's effective, but it doesn't deal with a low probability but high impact event, whereas the Black Swan will give you a theory for that. And then Restoration Agriculture by Mark Shepard, he really talks about the tether between nature and society and all the black swan risks that we are currently facing that are going to emerge from agriculture. I mean, really any day now, like new diseases that wipe out crops and environmental damage that's going to take years to repair. All of this stuff could really affect whether or not we can access food in the future. After Restoration Agriculture, I've got Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. This is a book which follows the lives of several individuals, but it touches on agriculture before the modern world, which is quite handy because you can see these links that Mark Shepard will talk about, and you can really see how the world's changed. After Anna Karenina, we got Death Throes of the Public by Dan Carlin. This is a podcast on World War I, which is like just the highest quality history I've ever encountered. And it really lays out how the modern world was shaped by World War I, followed by Skin in the Game by Taleb, and The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn. Personality and Its Transformations, 2017, by Jordan Peterson. This is a class from the University of Toronto, which really lays out a lot of philosophy and sort of like, not the basics of psychology, like it goes into quite advanced material, but it just really helps you kind of like understand human personality and its effect on how life unfolds for people.
Mm.
And then we finish with The Almanac of Naval by Eric Jorgensen and Tim Ferriss. And the Almanac of Naval talks about essentially work in the modern world, using technology to essentially gain scale in your actions, to be able to do one thing, have it affect 10,000 people and reap the benefits, 10,000 times. These sorts of things. He really talks about just how to operate in the modern world to take advantage of technology. But that was a long time to talk about all those books, and I'll have a list and all that in the article I'll link with this podcast. But you can listen to all those while playing video games. Like, you could probably do one big Skyrim character. And
That's the metric.
Maybe a couple. But you would be coming out of that. You would have answers to so many questions, questions you didn't even know that you had, and it would probably change the course of your life forever to a more positive outcome.
Yeah, a lot of those books and resources are life-changing. I quite like them as well. I've done a fair few of those ones on that list, and you start to think differently. And I'm not even joking when I say you start to think differently. You start noticing stuff in the world that you'd be like, that's ridiculous, I didn't see that. And then you can apply that to your own life, which is very useful because you can reduce a lot of suffering. And also, coupling that with Unify, you can really get things written down and sorted out.
And I've got don't try to overdo it, because small sustained changes are the key to success. So when I say you can listen to these things by, like, when you're playing video games, like, just be chill, like, just listen to them. You don't have to like log a ton of hours or anything. Like, just working through all of these nice and slowly. Like, I would say working through at your own pace versus rushing and trying to get through every source to be like, where's the good stuff? Quick. You'd probably be ahead if you work through it slowly rather than working through it quickly. So don't try to rush or anything. Don't try to overdo it. Like, just be chill about it.
Yeah,
especially if in your day-to-day life you're already tired, more time spent being productive is likely to wear you out before you enjoy the benefits. So when you tweak your schedule and you look at like integrating these reds and blues and kind of like maybe minimizing the reds and doing a little bit more in the blues, if you're already tired, you can't just load up on being productive, because you will just wear out. Like, if you weren't going to wear out, you'd probably be being more productive anyway. I don't know. Anything to say, guys?
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
I was gonna say, I do think it's more about the perspective of committing to change and also the long term exponential development when you're looking at these resources. Because a lot of the time you'll listen to it once and you might not get it, but that's okay because you'll be preoccupied doing other stuff, which means that going through it a second time is probably more worth it than anything else, and you'll get more out of it, but you're not sacrificing a whole nother block of 2 hours of not doing anything else.
Yeah, and like, you can do them while you're driving or cleaning and yard work, stuff like that. So there's you don't have to just be video games.
Yeah. Go, Andrew.
Hey, sorry. Emma's just come in and told me I tested positive, and they've decided to text her that I have. I don't know why. So I did miss the last like probably 30 seconds.
You're good.
But I did have actually something to mention beforehand, so I'll probably just mention that instead now. On the topic of kind of listening to things in the background while you play games, I started playing a new game with a few friends like a while ago, probably a few weeks ago, and it's a game where you can kind of just like you just have to sit there and farm for hours. And so I was kind of getting bored just like doing that and, having silence and stuff. And so I started listening to I just found this random video on it was just on the YouTube front page. It was an introduction to human behavioral biology. And it was by a Stanford professor. And just the
Is
way
it
he was
Robert Kapolsky or whatever, something like that? I can't
yeah,
remember his
yeah.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably have the same recommended on YouTube. We always seem to have this
Yeah.
case where I'm like, I watched this random South Park clip, and you're like, I watched the exact same clip 40 minutes ago. But yeah, it was really good, and it was like an hour-long lecture, and it didn't feel like it was tedious or anything. I had it on
Yeah.
in the background, and it felt like just someone was explaining it to me directly. It was really cool. Um, and I've just gone on. I think I'm 2 episodes in now of just kind of like having it on in the background. So it's not like fully, attention. I
Yeah.
don't need to constantly take notes and everything to remember what he's saying. And I would assume a lot of it I wouldn't be able to like recite it or anything like that. But
See,
it's
probably not on
interesting knowledge.
command, but if something relevant to it comes up, you'll
Yeah,
probably recall what he says because that guy's voice echoes through my head all the time.
yeah,
Like I listened to that series. I remember I remember one time when I was listening to, there was a part where he was talking about the New York, the way that they classify the stations on their diagram for it, or something like that. I can't remember exactly how he said it,
mm,
but I remember I was in the Bunnings car park at Stafford getting out the car, and like one of the things that's quite interesting is I listened to this random video years ago, and I remember a certain part of it, and I remember where I was when I listened to it, and like I can recall that section voluntarily, but other parts of it I can't remember at all. But that guy, his voice pops up in my head quite often when I encounter something relevant to what he spoke about in those videos, despite the fact that sitting here right now I could not remember the majority of it. Like I definitely couldn't recite it.
It's that
yeah,
priming. It's like when you have a piece of information and it's relevant, your brain like lights up that part of your cerebral cortex and pulls that information forward. And that can happen by encoding consciously and not consciously, which is amazing because it maps onto the listening while playing video games, because if your body's preoccupied, your brain's just taking in stuff in the background anyway.
Yeah, so cool. Do you got to do anything relevant to what Emma told you, Andrew?
yeah. I gotta stay right fucking here.
All right, well then
Go
we will
outside.
continue with the podcast.
Congratulations on your new positive COVID baby.
Yeah, So that would, I assume, mean Emma's also positive, and my other younger brother just told me he tested positive last night. So, I mean, good luck, guys, on avoiding it so far. But I think it's coming. I think it's he's coming for you.
Dude, there's no way that a lot of people don't have it. Like,
I have zero symptoms. If I didn't live alone, I wouldn't even know. If I did live alone, I wouldn't even know. Like I have no symptoms, and the only reason I got tested was because I was a close contact to someone who did test positive. And I
Oh,
wasn't
well,
even going to because I'm not sick at all. So,
it'll be interesting to check in with you next week and find out how you're doing.
well, I just want to know who at the wedding we can blame. That's all I care about.
so you can take
I'm
them
going to
out,
tell them
right?
I had a terrible time. I was vomiting blood and stuff.
Yes.
Tell them I was on the brink of death, even though I've like maybe coughed once in the last 3 days.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna push on because I still got a little bit more to get through, but it'll be interesting to see how you go if anything changes, because it's been.
Well, theoretically, I've had it for 4 days and I am fine. So I am double vaccinated though, so I'm not going to be like COVID ain't shit.
I feel like I've had COVID for the last 3 months.
Mm.
Nothing out
There
of
is
the
a thing
ordinary.
too that's relevant here where the Pfizer CEO said that the Pfizer vax has little to no impact, or little to no, I can't remember what he used. He didn't say efficacy. He said something anyway. Little to no effect on the Omicron variant, which has been quite interesting because if you've got Omicron, then that means Omicron's quite mild. And if you've got Delta, that means the vax is working very well, because I heard that one was meant to be pretty bad. But yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting watching it unfold.
Why would it, given that it was developed before Omicron existed?
No, that's the thing. It's I was reading the fact checkers on it, and they were saying that the vaccine helps with coronavirus, but not Omicron. But Omicron's a variant of coronavirus. So it's like, therefore, the vaccine doesn't help with all coronavirus. And then when they say it helps with coronavirus, like, that just doesn't follow. There's like a circular logic thing here, which has been interesting to track.
They were probably saying that when there wasn't 16 kinds of coronavirus.
But wasn't there already 19? There's COVID-19. Wasn't there 19 other variants?
The first 18, no one even cared about.
No, they didn't even have teeth.
Well, if you go to my Navigating Instability article, which I published, I think it was June last year, like I spoke about how the emergence of variants meant that we were all going to get coronavirus and that we should prepare. So knew it all along, prepared for it anyway. Follow my article so that you too can do well. I'm just saying, we're sitting here 6 months after that article, and there's no cheese in the shop, and people have coronavirus. That's two of the things I spoke about in that article.
Are you not putting cheese on burgers?
No, there's no cheese in like Woolies and stuff. We can still get the processed slices and stuff, but
that's not
really
milk.
cheese.
That's made on plastic. That's why it's called plastic cheese.
Tangy margarine, really.
Tangy margarine.
But anyway, I got some more articles coming. One of them's titled Dysfunction, and it's got some predictions in there that if they come true, it's like, good lord, we're heading to an awful future, and we got to be ready for it. But moving on, once you've organized your time, next we do budgeting. So you got to identify how you're spending your money, find out whether or not there's any left over at the end of the week. That's the main goal here. You want to know whether or not you're moving forward or backwards in your spending. And you just do the same thing you did with your time, with your money. This is the pattern. You identify the worst of your spending and see if you can minimize it or swap it with spending that will positively impact your life. And then, like, that's exactly what we did with time. We're now just going to do it with money. If you're spending money on something that you're not using, stop spending money on it. If you're spending money on something that's harmful for you, minimize it or stop entirely or swap it for something that's good for you. But the main thing you've got to work out is whether or not you even could save money if you got your spending under control, if you're not currently saving money, and then whether or not the amount of money that you can save in your current position would be significant. Because if you save $50 a week for a year, that's $2,500. And if you do that for 10 years, you've got 25 grand. And then it's essentially, it's a decade of your life to make $25,000. That's shit. That's not quick enough. Like, you've got to reach a point where you can save several $100s a week so that you don't end up committing to like a lifestyle that you don't really enjoy, while never being able to fund a lifestyle that you would enjoy because you never save a meaningful enough amount of money to make an investment that would open that door to you.
That's what people are talking about with the rat race, I guess.
Yeah.
They're not making the sacrifices, necessary developments to be able to get some capital, be able to make some decisions.
And you've got to figure it out, because if you're in stable employment, but the employment isn't giving you enough money, then you're going to have to make a change. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't just like, you can't move forward in life without at some point saving enough money to be able to fund a significant investment. It's that's one of the bottlenecks you've got to address. I'll push forward anyway, because it's that one's pretty easy. Everyone understands it. It's just the discipline required and the patience. It's so hard, but
it's
I mean,
interesting that
everybody knows what I'm talking about. You go, Will.
I was just about to say, it's interesting that everyone knows how to budget, or at least have the concept of budgeting, but don't understand budgeting your time either. It seems like a skill that I don't even have most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all. Like, all of this stuff is quite simple to understand, very difficult, and very rewarding.
Yeah.
The next thing is, I've got phone. So you just got to organize your phone. Calendar and banking apps are your friend. You just input all your recurring tasks and events into a Google Calendar. You've already got them written down if you're following the template, so it's very easy. And then you can now schedule the unallocated time effectively. Someone will say to you, do you want to do this on this date? And you'll be able to check the calendar and find out whether or not you're free. Saves you double booking things, saves you accidentally signing on for 70 hours of work in a week. Like, it's very useful to have a calendar, especially if you're so busy that you're having trouble keeping up with everything. This is the bottleneck of essentially attention. Like, if you're unable to keep track of everything that's going on because there's just too much of it, you need to outsource some of that. Whatever it is that's making it impossible for you to think through things, you need to outsource some of that effort onto just apps that will do it for you. You guys can probably tell where I'm going with this.
Do you have a specific one in mind?
Well, for me, I've always found it very useful to have the banking apps. What you do is, your bank will have an app, you open up a bunch of accounts, and then what you do is you open a bunch of accounts with the names of your classes of expenses. So you might have a car account, a home account, a food account, etc. And then from the account where your pay is transferred into, you automatically transfer enough money to those accounts for the week to make sure that you're on top of everything. And with bills, like, we got car registration in Australia, it's like $600 or something. That's an annoying one to get if you're not expecting it. But if you've been putting $20 a week aside for it, it's an easy one to pay. And you don't really miss the 20 if you do it weekly, and it happens automatically.
Yeah. I always find it so funny when I hear people talk about bills like that. When they're like, oh shit, this week I got the electricity bill, rent, and rego. And I'm like, do you not put money aside for the fucking $700 fucking registration bill? I'm like, every time that bill comes around, I have the money put aside for it.
Motherfuckers, they don't come randomly.
It's like good luck. The TMR is out to get you this month. They sent you your second registration form this year.
Just like every now and then they'll jump out of an alleyway with a gun and be like, Rego!
That's how Batman got where he was.
Like a completely unknown time.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've been the guy who was getting unexpected bills as well. And it's just because your attention is overloaded. You gotta get on top of that. Take advantage of apps. The next app that I would highly recommend.
What's this one called?
This one's called Unify. And Unify can help you handle the unexpected sources of negative emotion in your life. If you're if you go through this process and you've got your budget figured out, you've got your calendar, you've got your bank accounts happening automatically, direct debits, all of that stuff set up, events that cause negative emotion can be solved using the Unify process. So you download that app, you encounter a problem in the real world, you use the app helps you figure out your own solution to the problem. Moving forward, another step to getting organized is diet. And this one's really important for energy and health. So you've got to look at what you're eating and drinking. And we're just going to do exactly what we did before with the budget, with the time. You just look at what you're eating and drinking, when you're eating it, when you're drinking it, and you try to identify the worst of it and swap it for something better. So if you're too heavy, you identify the highest calorie items in your diet and see if you can minimize them. You don't have to swap what is good tasting food for bad tasting food and expect yourself to commit to that. Like, one thing you can do is you can work out the amount of calories you're eating, and if you're eating more than you need, you can minimize the calories. And sometimes just small changes, like you can swap a double quarter pounder for a regular quarter pounder. Like, it's not as good, but it's, you can do that. Like, especially if you're already eating too much. And just see how you go. See if you miss the calories. Like, you might even feel better for having not eaten it.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting where if you start to look over a week period or even a month period, once you like scale up to even to a year, it's like you can implement dietary changes, like taking fish oil tablets or something like that to increase focus, or having a piece of fruit because you need more fiber in your diet. Like, you can incorporate those into your habits, and then you get to reap the long-term rewards from doing them every day.
Yeah, diet's a massive one. There's carbs. That's one of the problems with the modern diet is essentially everyone eats too much carbs, and we get them the wrong way too. So, like, a good example of this is soft drink. It shouldn't be a thing. It's so bad for you. So if you're drinking soft drink, you can water it down. Like, you can use like a lot of ice. Like use a ton of ice. Try to get as little soft drink as possible. One of the things I found that I actually quite liked was making like a big green tea and putting like, I don't know, 1/5 soft drink and lots of ice. And then you can even chuck in like lemon or mandarin, something like that. And like, it's just as good as soft drink in flavor if you get it right. Like, experiment a little, like see what you like, but you can cut out so much sugar that you just don't need. Like, all it's doing is making you sick. That's all it's doing. It's not like your body needs a big hit of sugar from like, a Sunkist at a certain time of day to function optimally. Like, you just don't.
Yeah, I think the human body works a bit more on a slow burning circuit anyway. So having like a liter of Coke at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning is just not normal.
Yeah. Actually, I'll make another note here on the calories. You just want to avoid big meals unless your goal is to become sleepy. Like, I have a motto that big meals are always mistakes. And like, one of the best ways to do this is, like, if you're having a burger, skip the bread. Just don't even have it. Like, if it's a big meal, don't eat the low quality part of it. Just skip it.
Yeah, and then top up with just the same amount of tomato.
But still cook the part, just don't eat the part.
Yeah.
That's my motto. I always, always bin food. That's my.
Yeah. See, I cook up a
Cook
big
24
fucking
each.
bowl of carbonara and throw the pasta out and just drink the sauce.
Just have cream and bacon, yeah. The healthy part, as we know.
Yeah, and then I love that in my Unify app.
Yeah, this is a thing. People act like nutritionists are the primary source of information when it comes to food. But like, they may be the source of information when it comes to nutrition, but you're the primary source of information when it comes to whether or not some food was good for you. Like, if it made you feel awful and you didn't enjoy eating it, don't. That's like, start there. Like, eat food that makes you feel good, that tastes good. And from there, you can get a little bit more technical. Like, you can try work out if you're deficient in anything. But you can use your feeling. There's certain symptoms for vitamin deficiencies that will help you identify the deficiency that you likely have. Like, if you're displaying scurvy symptoms and you're not eating any vitamin C, good chance you've got to eat some fruit. Like,
it's actually funny because that brings up a memory of mine, and it's a pretty shit one. But I remember watching bodybuilding videos with a friend of mine, and one of the things that they'd talk about a lot is like taking notice of their bowel movements as like a sign of if the food's going in the right direction for their exercise. And it's like,
see,
as I said, it's pretty shit. But
but obviously you should do that. Like you shouldn't be completely ignorant of what you're shitting. Like maybe you don't want to be you don't want to be spending too much time on it, but if there's a problem, like, you just got to figure it out,
Well, there's that argument where it's like you shouldn't eat corn because you can literally see it in your stools, and it's like, that's just wasted. It's just gone through the cycle and hasn't done anything. Like, what's the point?
I got a couple examples here too. For often you're not eating the best version of things, and this is where I think the modern world has really started going downhill. Starting with steak, grass-fed versus grain-fed beef. It sounds like something that doesn't matter very much, but what they do is they feed the cows. Sometimes they feed the cows a lot of corn or corn-based feed, like, whatever they're feeding them. And because there's no nutrition in the corn, they'll feed the cows this feed, and the cows will end up malnourished. And then when they slaughter them, whatever vitamin deficiency that was in the cow, I mean, it's now in the food because you're eating that malnourished cow. And if the cow's supposed to have, whatever source of vitamins, and they're just not there, and you're not getting that source of vitamins anywhere else in your diet, like, you're going to have a deficiency as well. And one of the things that can happen, because there's so many low quality foods in our diet, you could eat steak and corn and I don't know, maybe some sort of low quality potato, like, I don't know, something like that. And you could have a dinner which is high in calories but very deficient in vitamins and minerals, to the point where you'll notice that you're not eating correctly. And if you're eating, I don't have a good list here. I sort of started to get tired at this point in the show notes, but there's ways that you can eat a balanced diet of fresh fruit, meat, vegetables, etc., and end up deficient and malnourished in many vitamins and minerals. And it's just because of low quality foods coming out of modern agriculture. I have an example here. There was a study done on eggs where there's a farmer called Joel Salatin in the US, and the way that he farms his chickens is very much in line with the natural processes of nature. And his chickens are very, very well nourished. And then there's the factory style eggs where the chickens are in the, like the warehouses and all that sort of stuff. And with some of the vitamins and minerals, his eggs had like 1,000 times as much as the factory eggs. And we're talking very small quantities, but when you're talking factors of 1,000 and you're looking at a natural process, which is more like what we would be getting if we were working in line with the kind of environment that we evolved in, versus a factory environment, which is very new, and we're throwing things that are close approximates but not exact at our bodies, you can see that a lot of the a lot of the modern ailments are probably just because of food. Because you could eat bad beef, bad eggs, bad corn, etc., and get sick.
It's shit. It's like, and you feel it as well. And I think that's one of the reasons that people have a hard time eating a diet that's new, because when they swap to a healthier diet expecting that they'll feel better after a while, they're not getting all the nutrients. And I was annoyed about this because I was eating a lot of like home cooked meals with a lot of vegetables in them and just feeling empty afterwards. Like no carbs, no minerals, no anything, waking up tired and then not having the energy to cook breakfast in the morning, which is not the I was not happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get your nutrition right. And it really starts with getting the nutrition of the food right. But unless you're going to start a farm, it's very hard. Like, you can buy organic and stuff like that. And like, I would say that don't minimize your spending on food if it means you're eating low quality, because the low quality will affect every element of your life, as well as in the long term make you very, very sick.
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
a little bit
you
of
go.
research into where to find food is probably not going to go astray.
The next thing I got here, and two more notes on diet. One is high protein and fat meals in the morning reduce cortisol. So cortisol's the hormone that makes you feel stressed. In the morning, your cortisol is naturally high because that's what's supposed to make you feel bright and alert and ready for the day. When your cortisol spikes, you get a corresponding low. And naturally, if you can have your cortisol spike and stay high, and you can die of a stroke at the age of 45 or whatever, but it sort of goes in cycles, and you're supposed to wake up with high cortisol. That's supposed to make you bright and alert. And then when you have breakfast, if you eat a high fat, high protein meal, that helps your cortisol kind of like taper off rather than drop in the afternoon. And then another thing that will happen too is if you eat a high fat, high protein breakfast, instead of spiking your blood sugar in the morning with, say, like, whatever cereal or something that might as well be lollies, what you'll have is, on a hormone level, you'll get to the afternoon and still have energy and focus. And on a blood sugar level, you'll be able to, let's say, have some fruit and all that sort of stuff, like some snacks at lunch, increase your blood sugar. Like, don't try to spike it through the roof or anything. And then you can even use your caffeine and stuff like that. You can be strategic about this, but you can hit that afternoon lull where people normally go to sleep, and you can keep your energy and alertness, and that can give you a few more hours of good work in the day, which can make all the difference in the long run, especially if you're in an environment where you're competing with other people. And another note, this is part of the big meals are always mistakes. If you have a medium lunch rather than a big lunch, because you're not as full, you don't get as sleepy. So you can kind of get a few things working for you so that when you get to the end of the day, you still feel good.
Which is ultimately what you want, because you need to be able to weigh up a lot of different things and keep the energy there, so that way when you get home from working an early shift or a late shift, you can either wind down or you can do some productive work that's going to benefit you in the long term.
Yeah, and like your experience will vary and stuff. Like, this is notes that I've made from my own sort of personal life and a little bit of research, but like, I work more than anyone I know, and I'm surviving. Like, so like, it's been a year of insane amounts of work, and I'm healthier now than I was going into it. So I mean, there's something to it. Like, I'm quite careful with my diet.
What are you having for breakfast these days?
For breakfast these days, it's usually sausages still. But then what I'll do, I'll have a couple sausages at home before I leave work, and then I'll fill up a container full of grapes and cherries, and then
nice.
I'll snack on at the moment it's grapes and cherries because they're in season. It's been mandarins, it's been bananas, it's been whatever. But I'll snack on them as I drive to work, as well as I'm working in the morning. I'll be snacking right up till lunchtime. And I never end up full, but I'm getting, I'm getting some sugar, and I don't know, I'm feeling good, Because this is the thing. You want to swap lollies for fruit because there's some. It's like lollies do nothing but give you diabetes. That's pretty much.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they do. But cherries and grapes, they fight inflammation, and inflammation is the cause of so many modern illnesses and diseases. Even just general back pain and stuff like that. Like sometimes, obviously how you go through the day, like if you're sitting down too long, if you're standing up, if your posture's bad, all of that's very primary for back pain. But eating food that encourages inflammation will make it worse, whereas cherries and grapes will minimize inflammation. So if I am doing anything that's stressing my back, the cherries and grapes just give me that little edge just to help me sort of not experience the worst of it. And another good thing, because we work in a very hot environment because we're cooking all the time, I end up dehydrated I end up very dehydrated if I'm not very careful. I can eat cherries and grapes, and they're a constant source of water. Like they're mostly water.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of getting lollies that cause diabetes, I'm getting a source of water and vitamins that's helping with back pain. You get all these things working for you. You do the time budget, like you budget your money. You set up your phone so that it's doing some thinking, because it's a little computer. You might as well have it doing the thinking that you need to do for you. And then you sort out your diet a bit. And then hopefully you've got a foundation that will allow you to make some investments that, ultimately making any major investment is going to test you, like it's going to stress you out. You'll hopefully be able to survive the stressful period long enough to be able to reap the benefits, and then continually, go again, go bigger, and keep gaining knowledge and end up somewhere you want to be rather than the place you end up if you continually do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right you're definitely right on the start your day right thing, because obviously, if you're starting your day eating 2 cups of sugar, you're gonna crash immediately. Lunchtime hits and you're done for the day. And in saying that, I think you're right on eating cherries and grapes, but I also don't know really anyone who was eating 6 Snickers to begin the day. I don't know many people that do that. So obviously eating a bowl of Cocoa Pops is, essentially the same. But again, I think that's fading. I think very sugary cereals for breakfast are it's a very popular thing with kids, but do you know any adults who regularly eat those kind of cereals? When was the last time you bought a box of Cocoa Pops?
I do know someone, but I'm not going to mention their name.
Will's eating a bowl of Fruit Loops right now.
He's got 10 cheesels on his fingers, and he's biting the cheese off the outside of them.
Dude, you think I chew? I smack them all together in the bag and then just eat the fucking powder. No fucking chewing. No saliva either. Alright. Have we got anything else to add to this? Because we're coming up just over time now.
I have one thing. Aaron, do you have anything?
You go first.
So is that a yes?
I don't know. I kind of got something.
I just want to say happy birthday, Will. I wanted to ask you what you're up to today. What are your plans, man? Happy birthday.
Sorry. Did I talk too long? Was I being rude?
3 months.
What?
What are your plans, Will? What are you doing today? Are you working?
Yeah, I'm working because 2 people at my workplace at the moment is in isolation.
Call in
So,
sick. Tell him you got COVID. I'll vouch for you. I say I kissed you or something.
well, I'm waiting back for a test result from my partner. So if she's positive,
Hmm.
then I'm
Just
probably
call your
positive.
manager, whoever that is, lie to him, say you're sick, and then what are they? They're not gonna know.
I'm willing to die for a
For the
good
job.
cause.
Yeah, exactly.
For the job.
That's our motto.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add, Aaron?
I didn't really mention exercise, but increase your strength by 5%, decrease your weight by 5%. See how you feel.
Pick
How
up
am I
on
gonna
that next
increase
time.
my strength if I decrease my weights?
And that's that. See you next time.